All right, we are on air. Martha Bueno just joined the stream. We are waiting on the Dank Informer to join. Um,
Hey, hey,
Hello, how's it
how are
going?
you?
Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, I should
Thank
say.
you. So the Dank Informer you were saying is
Yes,
not here?
not here just yet. They will be joining us shortly. I'm sure they'll be here right in the nick of time. We are just a little bit before when we agreed to start, you know. So you got your weed rolled up this time
I
around,
do
Martha?
not. I do not. I don't smoke inside my house.
Oh, hey, fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
do not smoke inside my house, so I don't smoke, you know, in front of my computer.
Yeah.
I
I
also
don't
don't know how I feel about putting that out there.
what's that?
It's still federally illegal.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
I have my
But
other drug of choice. I have my coffee
yeah, there
in
you
my
go.
free Ross mug.
There you go. Free
There you go.
Ross.
Free
Look into
Ross,
that.
drink my coffee every day,
Hell yeah.
my other
Hell yeah.
drug of choice.
Well,
So,
I'm
are
about
you
to
ready for this debate?
yes, I am. And to enjoy it, I'm actually cracking open a beverage, 50 milligrams of hemp derived THC from a brand that is not only licensed to sell cannabis in the state of Illinois, but they also sell hemp. The Dank Informer is joining us now. So here we go. How about you, Martha? Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Well, the Dank Informer
Fired
just
up.
joined us. Mr. Dank Informer, can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep. Yep. How's it going today?
Good, good.
Sweet. Well, thank you both for joining me. I want to give you both the space to, first of all, like before we even get into the issue, introduce yourself as much as you can. The Dank Informer, I know we've talked in the past, and there's certain elements of your life that you stay private about. So, obviously, as much as you're willing to share, go ahead and get into it. But why don't we start with Martha Bueno? I'm not. Are you hearing that sound? Is that just me? Oh, no,
I'm
that's
hearing.
just me. Sorry. I'm just high. No, I'm joking. I had something else open on my computer that I was hearing. Martha, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are and maybe where we can find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me online at Bueno for Miami, and I've been a long-term cannabis advocate and just an overall libertarian believer in smaller government, less government involvement in our lives. Um, and that's pretty much where you can find me on X or IG as Bueno for Miami.
Sweet, sweet. Thank you so much. And I'll share that on my screen here in just a moment. While I do that, Mr. Dank Informer, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'll
Sure,
also
yeah.
share your Twitter too.
I guess I go by the Dank Informer. I'm just a retail cannabis investor. I don't work in the cannabis industry. I've been a cannabis consumer, maybe about 15 years, and I live in a state that does not have a legal cannabis program. So I've primarily consumed via the hemp industry, believe it or not.
That is hard.
Um,
That is hard to believe,
it is.
considering some of the things you that you tweet out. So I don't know where we want to start on this. Dank, we've obviously talked in the past. Martha, you were just on the show. I think a good place to start is this idea that I see you talk about the Dank Informer, and I think you maybe even just tweeted about it today. Um, like I can just share your Twitter right now. Again, if we didn't make it clear enough, you can follow the Dank Informer at the Dank Informer on Twitter, displaying it on.
Not really loading.
Oh, is it? Can you see it now?
It's
It's grainy.
yeah,
It's grainy. I
it
apologize.
hasn't
Well,
loaded completely on the screen.
okay. Well, I'll
It
read
came
what I'm
through. It's
seeing.
coming through.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. There you go. Now you can see it.
So, there's this idea that that you talk about a lot about hemp derived intoxicating compounds and these people that like them taking a stance against marijuana legalization. Maybe we start there. And
Yeah,
maybe this goes without saying, but everybody on this phone call believes marijuana should be legalized, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Now, here's where I think this
Or
conversation splits.
decriminalized is the better word for it, the better avenue for it. But nonetheless, some type of absolute legalization.
Yeah. I tend to agree, and thank you, Martha, for adding that. And I think where this debate comes down to is how we do that. And Martha, maybe this opens you up to start off, and then the Dank Informer, I'd love to have you give a response. You're not against legalization, you're against Amendment 3. Do you want to unpack that in
Well,
Florida?
first of all, I think that it helps if we start at the very beginning, and that is, what is the difference between hemp and marijuana? And I think that if we agree on these terms, then we can just move forward very quickly and easily. So, Dank Informer, you just said that you consume hemp-based cannabinoids. And so, again, I'd like to clear up this notion. The hemp-based cannabinoids you're consuming, I'm guessing, are Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, something that can get you high. Is that correct?
It's mostly natural. It's marijuana. I mean, hemp is cannabis inherently. It's the same plant. And it's a complicated subject because the hemp products are really like a three-legged monster, right? You have naturally extracted delta 9 THC and CBD, then you have synthetic cannabinoids, and then you have regular weed sold as THCA. But at the end of the day, it's all cannabis. I mean, it's the same plant.
That is not the three categories. That's like that was a huge bastardization of the entire industry in the plant. So I think that that's probably where we start off wrong on this debate, is that I think that you're just not informed as to what these things are. So you're saying, what product do you personally consume? Since you didn't give a straight answer, do you consume
Delta 9 THC and
Delta?
CBD and
So Delta 9 THC, you said you're not in a legal state, so you are consuming hemp-based Delta 9 THC.
sure, for the purposes of classifying
Well,
it.
I think, again, let's start with the classification. So all cannabis, hemp, comes from the cannabis sativa A plant. Now, the definition of them is the one that has higher or lower THC. So to be based as hemp in the United States, you have to have your flower come in at 0.3% or less. And then anything above that would be considered cannabis. Are you in agreement with that?
Sure, but
Okay.
yeah, sure. That's what the definition says by the Farm Bill.
Okay. So because many times on the internet you've stated, you've called hemp-based cannabinoids gas station weed or something else. So the one that you consume personally starts out as hemp and then is converted via a process. And I'm going to assume that you are able to consume it without any medical issues.
I'm not really sure what you're asking. I mean,
Because
whether
you've
you get
stated in
TH,
the past that hemp that comes from, quote, gas stations is unregulated, untested, and terrible. And so I'm asking you, does it give you like a health issue that you consume it, or are you able to consume it just fine?
yeah, so the reason I've been kind of so adamant about the hemp industry being unregulated is because I've personally suffered, and I know other colleagues and coworkers who've suffered from hemp-derived products because they contain these synthetic cannabinoids in the vapes and the cartridges and whatever they sell.
Synthetic cannabinoids are completely different from hemp-based cannabinoids, though.
No,
Synthetic
no, they're not.
cannabinoids are things like spice and K2.
No, synthetic
Yes.
cannabinoids are like THCO, THC10. These are fully synthetic cannabinoids.
THC10?
Yeah.
You mean Delta 10?
Yeah, THC-10, Delta 10, whatever you
No.
want to call it.
Okay. No. So synthetic means that it does not exist in nature. THCO and any of the ones that have a dash O are synthetic. Those mean that the cannabis plant never produces them. They were converted into something that doesn't exist, and they were created. That is a synthetic cannabinoid. Now, cannabinoids are synthesized from hemp, which the word sounds the same, so I can understand how some people that don't know and aren't technical could get confused. So when you synthesize something and you change it from one to another, it is like, for example, if you've ever had, I don't know, a vitamin. When you have vitamins, you aren't having, like, if you have vitamin C, you're not having a crazy amount of vitamin C that comes out of an orange, for example, and you have people processing oranges to give you vitamin C. Vitamin C is synthesized. The same process is done for hemp to convert it into the cannabinoids that are sold. So Delta 8, Delta 10, Delta 9, CBN, CBG, all of these are naturally occurring, but because they occur so small in the plant, they are synthesized. They are not synthetic,
Yeah,
which
but
is
let me
why,
make
again,
it
why
this.
I
But
wanted
you're
to make sure
getting.
that we have the time to go through these points, because just like you're confused, I know that anybody who
I'm
watches
not
this will
confused.
equally be confused.
THC, THCO, HHCO, HHC, these are like synthetic cannabinoids. Now,
Yes, those
they're
are, as
all
I stated, anything with
anything
an
you
O at the
buy,
end.
yeah, anything you buy from the hemp industry though is in fact chemically converted from CBD. So whether it's delta 8 THC, whether it's delta 10 THC, which
But now you've moved the
might
goalposts.
occur, I'm not moving the goalposts. I think,
You indeed have, because we're talking about
but
synthetic
we're talking about blends of
versus,
these cannabinoids, and what happens in the chemical process of converting CBD to delta 8 is you get a bunch of impurities, which are could be delta 10, could be other cannabinoids and other chemical molecules.
And to
And
that it
the
sorry.
problem really is, it's not that delta 8 inherently is possibly bad or something. It's that the majority of hemp processors, they follow no regulations. They're unregulated, and they basically take a bunch of CBD, they chemically convert it, and they shove a bunch of these things in the vape, and there's no telling what's in that vape.
So, and I think that from an outsider's perspective, I'm from Illinois, but just I see a lot of similarities between Illinois and Florida. And personally, the first place I tried Delta 8 was in an Illinois dispensary, which says that it can be tested, regulated, and sold. And so I think maybe the critique against Amendment 3 is that it limits participation. So if your worry is that
is it
um
possible to share this? I have here the Curaleaf website. They just
Yeah.
created the hemp company by Curaleaf.
yeah, and
These
if
MMTCs create hemp-based products. Like this is not even part of Amendment 3. I'm happy to go through it if you'd like. I'm not a scientist, but when we're talking about something that is a technical issue that you're having, and then you just go into, well, but everything that they sell. So this is an MMTC that has been legal here in Florida and legal in many other states for a long time. They have just created the hemp company.
I've got all their
Because
products in my fridge right now. I have all the I buy products from the hemp industry, but not everybody does it right.
right.
That's
okay,
what
but
I
that's a
tell
whole
you.
different issue. That's not what so Amendment 3 does not cover hemp at all. So
Exactly.
this
I know that.
conversation should never have even gone into hemp, but we're clearing these points for everyone who's watching, and for making this discussion easier. But you're going down this hemp route and you're saying things that are just not true. So I'd
No,
love to see your backup onto this, or
where the hemp subject comes in regards to Amendment 3 is that you have Governor DeSantis coming out against, Amendment 3 and legalizing marijuana, but at the same time taking in donations from the hemp industry. And you've got the hemp lobby, which Evan Power, the GOP chairman in Florida, has been lobbying on behalf of the hemp industry. You've got the hemp industry lobbying the GOP in Florida to strike down the hemp ban bill. And then DeSantis coming out against like Amendment 3 and like legal marijuana. So you have two competing interests. Do you agree? You have two special interests, which are the state regulated cannabis and the hemp industry. They're all competing for a piece of the same pie, which are cannabinoids and
sure.
cannabinoid products.
I mean, is the point that you're making that government is for sale and that people with a lot of money
Exactly.
can
Of course,
buy
the
them?
government's
Then
for
yeah,
sale. That's what
absolutely.
lobbying is. I mean,
Yes,
But I
I
guess
agree with you. So
if
we're
I
in
at the end of
could,
the
agreement.
day, is
This has nothing. I'm
you
sorry.
have regulated cannabis, and then you have people who sell unregulated cannabis via the hemp channel. So you
No,
can't,
I'm
yeah,
sorry. Wait. In order to sell hemp in at least the state of Florida, where I am, in most states, you must be regulated and licensed in order to do so. So when you say make those claims, it's basically like you're just pulling it out of.
the licensing requirements for hemp derived products, though, from a consumer's perspective, don't even come close to what medical
so
cannabis
that's where I
or legal
wanted to,
cannabis
that's
comes
where I was
close.
trying to
Okay.
get us.
Yeah.
What it, like
When
my,
I
that's
pull up
why
a
I,
product, when I pull up a product online from like a website that sells hemp derived products, and in Martha's defense, her products are actually very well tested because I looked at her site. But the majority of these companies that I've done research on, when you look at the certificate of analysis, there is no mycotoxin, fungal test panel. There is no bacterial test panel. There is no pesticide test panel. The majority of these products and the companies that sell them are selling fucking garbage.
and I want to set aside for a moment that I feel like using cannabis testing is a flawed backstop. I want to
It
set
is.
that aside for a moment but I just what I don't understand what's not agreeable because you always I see people yourself included, but they always bring up this idea of untested gas station cannabis. I don't understand what like why anybody would be opposed to just allowing these operators to be subjected to the same testing standards. If that's your backstop, like what's wrong? Like, do you get what I'm asking here?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Like, if you're saying that the problem is that it's untested, well, then let's test it, right?
The
And I'm
problem
setting
is not
aside that I think testing's
that's
flawed.
one of the problems. The second problem is that you have, like I said, these cannabinoid soup products, which are like, I can walk down to my gas station and the vapes will basically say they have THCO, Delta
Right.
10, THCP, and a bunch of other cannabinoids in it. No one has ever consumed these cannabinoids before the hemp industry started chemically
But
deriving it.
again, I this is where I like again, I tried Delta 8 for the first time in an Illinois dispensary. It was on sale. I can look it up.
Sure, that's your personal experience. I'm just saying in general, when you talk about chemically derived cannabinoids from CBD, you're not talking about cannabis plant medicine. You're talking about something that's put in through a chemical process that takes CBD and converts that molecule to something else via acids and solvents and what have you. And that process in the hemp industry, these hemp processors, there's no regulations,
And
which is
that's
why.
why I
These
think
regulations.
that's why setting aside the fact that there is some regulation, that's why I think you should welcome more regulation. Like this is
Right.
what we agreed on last time we spoke was that if your concern is these synthesized cannabinoids, then it's like you should be in the front of the line to have them tested.
May I share one more time the screen, please?
Absolutely. But do you agree with
So
where I'm coming from on that, the Dank Informer? It's like
Yeah,
the
if they
idea of
want
the
to, absolutely, they need to be regulated. But what I'm saying is, this has been going on for 6 years and no one's done a thing.
okay, I think that's a great point to bring up to regulators. Here is a thread from Reddit with a list of all of the terrible issues that different MMTCs have had, including the batch numbers. And if you click on it, you can see the photos and the stuff with the powdery mildew and everything. So what point am I trying to make here? It doesn't matter. These people are super heavily regulated. They have all the regulations in the world, and yet this is going on with them. This is all from Florida. It
Sure,
is
but
problems
they have
in their
compliance requirements and they can be sued for that.
no, and now I'm glad we're getting to Amendment 3. So Part 3 of Amendment 3 clearly states actions and conduct by medical marijuana treatment center registered with the department or its agents or employees. And in compliance with this section, which all of these companies that I just showed are, shall not be subject to criminal or civil liability or sanctions under Florida law. So congratulations. Thank you so much for telling us that what you want is to give government the power
now
to give these people the Pfizer treatment, because that's exactly what Amendment 3 does. Amendment 3 says no matter what you do to our consumers, you have no liability. And it is go a little further up.
section
It
3.
is right there, number 3, actions and conduct by medical marijuana treatment center, and then shall not be subject to criminal or civil liability or sanctions under the Florida law. So we, with this amendment, and you have to understand, Trulieve has paid $60 million plus. According to the donations, the current donations, Trulieve has paid $61,275,000 to get this amendment through. And why is that? Why does Trulieve want this amendment to go through? And I would point to that number that I told you guys, the number 3, which grants them full liability. I'd also like to remind you all that Trulieve has had a major issue with mold, as well as people dying who have been working in their facilities. Therefore, it behooves Trulieve to maintain a monopoly, which this also grants them, and have protection from the law. So you're saying that you want more protection, you want government to protect you from gas station weed, but you're okay with giving it to these people.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I
That's
don't.
literally what you're saying.
No,
Please tell
Mm.
me
I'm
how I'm
not.
wrong.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, give him a chance to respond. Yeah, where is your stance on, Florida's Amendment 3? Because like one of the things we've started with, and I'll give you the floor. Sorry to ask a question before, but I just wanted to like establish it. It sounded like we started with you maybe agree everybody should be able to have access to testing. So that sounds like maybe you're against the limited license approach, but yeah, clarify your stance on Amendment 3.
I mean, I've got no problem with Amendment 3. It's legalizing cannabis so people can't be persecuted for using it. So I'm not really sure. Like as far as like the legal wording about criminality and civil liability, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really answer that. Um, but you can't just come out and say you don't want people to vote for Amendment 3 because like you have legal cannabis through the hemp industry, and it's like, well, yeah, but the hemp industry is literally poisoning people.
Oh,
And I've
but no,
got
no, the medical marijuana industry is poisoning people. And they're paying a lot of money to be able to continue to poison people.
but they have to pat. So sure, so let's say they have bad batches, they have mold. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they use pesticides. Look at the story out of LA and California, right? So there's
Lots of
pesticides in
pesticides.
state legal products, but they are required to test for these things, and because that's in the regulatory requirements of the governing body that's overseeing those cannabis licensees. So when they do break the law, or that when they do get caught, they get sued for these things, right?
Yeah, but to your point, when you bring up that LA story, that's part of a broader trend of like, okay, so this is the vapes, but you've got THC inflation. In Illinois and other states, you've got confidentiality of this stuff altogether.
The lab issue,
Remediation.
the lab issue is being dealt with. NIST came out with the hemp reference material when we talked about that last time, and they came out with it like a couple weeks after. But so now basically labs have to get their equipment certified with a NIST traceable product. So you can't, the lab shopping is going to be over pretty soon. Like they have to get NIST compliant.
I have a question. How much have you been paid for to by this industry to lobby against
I don't work in the
or in
industry.
favor?
I don't lobby for this industry. I'm a retail cannabis investor. I buy stocks on my fucking Fidelity account, on my brokerage account. I don't
So
work in the
nobody's ever
industry.
gifted you any
No
stock
one's
or
ever
anything.
gifted me anything. I don't work in this industry. I have a W-2 regular day job. So your assumptions there are wrong.
No, I was
Like I
asking a
said,
question.
the reason I have so much beef with cannabis products coming from the hemp industry is because people I know, and myself included, have had lung complications from these garbage products because they're unregulated.
They're not unregulated. You potentially have bought something that wasn't from a good source. That happens, but they
It's
are
from a
very
source that's
regulated.
lobbying in Florida from some of these companies that sell products in gas stations. I've
Okay.
I've posted about it, Flying Monkey, Looper, Herb, all these hemp companies that have the Florida Healthy Alternatives Association. They're all sponsors of that hemp lobby who are fighting against Amendment 3 in Florida. All these companies have sold THCO, and some of them have sold HHCO products that were proven to be lung toxic.
And you know what? The synthetic cannabinoids is a completely different discussion. I
But,
agree
but
with
that's
you
what I'm trying to tell you,
wholeheartedly.
is that these companies don't care about consumer safety. They will find the next cannabinoid and put it in the vape. They don't give a shit. They will constantly keep synthesizing things until they
But
find the next cannabinoid and they stick it in a
So
product.
we should pass a bad law to then do what? Because that law doesn't
People shouldn't
affect
be
these
people
people.
shouldn't be chemically
I
deriving
agree with you.
cannabinoids
I agree with you. I don't
unless they
think
have a
bad
license
products
and
should
is
be out on the
strictly
market.
regulated.
But we're debating Amendment 3. So I'm asking you, passing a bad law, how does that help the situation?
It's not a law, it's a ballot amendment. It's a ballot
Which is
initiative.
worse. You're going to pass something which goes on our Constitution, which is worse than a law, because you see, a law can be changed, but a constitutional amendment takes another constitutional amendment to change it, which means that somebody has to come up with, look at how much it's cost. It's cost over $66 million to get this one where it is, and and so that people know what's in it. And of course, they're trying to make it seem like this is recreational. It's not recreational. It only provides recreational to the MMTCs. It gives them full liability. It doesn't say that
Now,
they're going
the,
to
the
issue more
Florida
licenses.
legislature can
It
issue
doesn't say
licenses
anything like
for other
that. And
entities.
it grants them full liability. So my question to you, in order for Floridians to take this back, should it pass, it takes another ballot amendment. So you're saying that you don't like what happens at gas stations. And my question to you is, how does this protect you from what's happening at gas stations?
Because the products are tested and there's a compliance and regulations.
I think we have a complete just miscommunication here.
yeah, I mean, do you have another approach on what you're trying to ask here, Martha? I mean, I feel like I get what you're putting down, but I don't.
I don't think it's
Um,
getting picked up.
so
I mean, okay, here's the thing. Are you familiar with the Uber and the taxi medallion issue that was happening when Uber was just getting started?
Sure, yeah, I've seen the movie.
You've seen the movie? I'm not sure what movie that is.
It's a Netflix movie on Uber. They talk about it.
Oh
Oh,
shit.
I haven't
I'll
seen
have
that.
to check it out.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. But during the time that it was happening, let me just refresh people's minds. Uber, when it was new, it was pretty much the only competition to taxis. And taxis were regulated by the government. So before we had Uber, in order to drive a taxi, you needed a taxi medallion. And every taxi car had one taxi medallion. And the cost for that taxi medallion was well over $1 million per taxi. So taxi companies that could afford multiple medallions had multiple taxis, and you had to work for one of these guys. So that was the monopoly at the airports, for example. You'd arrive from a flight, and in order to get in a car that was not your own, you had to pay a taxi. And the government prohibited Ubers from picking people up at airports. Over time, as Uber won and won in the market share and won, now anybody can drive an Uber. You can pick up people from anywhere, and it's a better ride. Cars have air conditioning, they're better cars, they're newer, etc. The market that you are describing, the one that you want to protect, is the taxi medallion in this case, while I'm telling you that the hemp market is the Uber one. I'm not saying that it is perfect. Uber has had issues. They've had issues with bad drivers. They've had issues with insurance. They've had issues with people going missing. It's been a rough start, and I'm not saying that any new industry is just going to magically appear and be wonderful. But what I'm saying is you are advocating to keep the taxi medallion business alive versus allowing people that are going to be innovators to go into the market and create new things. Does that make sense? So
No,
what this
because
is doing,
the Florida legislature can issue more licenses anytime they wish. So
may
the
issue, it
licenses
does
for
not say will, it says may. And if you know
the
anything about the
licenses
Florida
can be
license,
issued by the regulatory body, and the Florida legislature can enact laws and how they see fit to issue more licenses.
how many licenses is Florida supposed to have right now? Do you know?
The ballot amendment doesn't
No, the
like
previous, this isn't
say
the
these
first
are the fixed number of
ballot amendment.
licenses and nobody can ever get a license.
How many licenses are supposed to be in Florida at this moment? I asked you if you knew how many. You started going off on a tangent.
I was in the middle of a sentence, but sure. I think there's 27 or 30 issued, and there's supposed to be another 20 or 30. I don't know.
They're supposed to be. That those licenses. So according to the Florida rules, we were supposed to have 4 new MMTCs per every 200,000, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the exact number. We are supposed to have close to 100 at this point, and we don't have them. Why is that? We have 22 companies and another 20 licenses that applied last year for it and have not been issued. The
Sure,
point
but
is
what does that
the
have to do with the
regulatory
ballot amendment?
body that is supposed to, the rules have been written. This isn't the first amendment. We had amendment 2 back in 2016 that passed that was supposed to grant licenses based on how many people there are in the state that are registered as medical marijuana treatment patients, and that they've never kept up. They've never been able to keep up. So you're saying that the regulatory body is going to issue these magical licenses when in here it doesn't compel them to do it. There's nothing in here that says they must issue licenses. This is for the monopoly. That is what this is. This says that the people who are already licensed have their license, and they may, not shall, may potentially, if they feel like it in the future, maybe open licenses. But on the previous ballot amendment where they had to, we still don't have all of those issued. So I'm supposed to believe a governing body is going to do something when they've had a legal authority to do so and they were supposed to and have not done it.
Right,
I'm
but
gonna
So
give
the ballot
go
amendment
ahead.
has nothing to do with the legislature issuing licenses or whatever governing body is responsible for that. The ballot amendment is legalizing adult use cannabis. And we've seen before what happens when you put home grow in there. The Supreme Court struck it down last time, right? So when you can't have a ballot amendment with 15 different
you're
things.
talking about regulate Florida, which is regulate alcohol, regulate cannabis like alcohol. The reason it was struck down was not because of home grow. It was struck down because you have to have a single issue per ballot amendment, and the Constitution of Florida said that it wasn't a
Right.
single
So it
issue.
violated the single issue clause. So when you start
But it
shoving,
had nothing to do with the home grow. That was something that is completely out there that is not true at all. And I'd love to see your
that's not what I've seen, but sure. we can
If you
agree to
have
disagree
something about
there.
it, the Florida Constitution issued an opinion. We're supposed to have 44 licenses. We have less than that are active, and we're supposed to have, I think it's 4 per every 100,000.
So people shouldn't vote, according to you, the people shouldn't vote for Amendment 3 because they can get weed from the hemp industry. Because that's
My
what you do
point
when you
is
vote.
putting a bad law onto the Florida Constitution where we cannot change it is a bad idea because this is a bad law. Now, if somebody would have written out a constitutional amendment that said cannabis in Florida should be completely legal, you should be able to grow it and sell it and do whatever you want with it, and there's going to be some rules that the legislature will enact, and that is the ballot amendment, sure, by all means, we should have had that. But that is not what these 4 pages say. And I'm asking you, have you
But you
read
can't
these
have
4
all these
pages?
things in a single ballot amendment, precisely because of the single issue clause. Like,
But
This is 4 pages. This isn't single issue. And yet it passed constitutional review.
and I'm sorry if I could
I'm
just
not
like,
a lawyer, so I can't get into what defines
yeah.
a single issue, but there's a specific language that would determine that.
I was about to ask that exact question because I'm like, to me, it seems like a single issue. Cannabis is no longer illegal for anybody like that, you know, and then it offsets into, like Martha was saying, home grow and then licensing and use and possession and stuff. But I get what you're also saying, Dank
But now
Informer.
you're
It's like
inferring what it would allow, so now you're enumerating a
but
bunch
what
of
do you
things.
mean? Like that's my thing is like when people say cannabis is legal, like you should like when you say I'm automatically inferring that I should grow it be able to grow it at home. It's like of course. Like what do you mean I wouldn't be able to grow it at home? You know what I mean? Um I mean unless you meant something else, unless you were referring to something else.
No, I'm just saying, like you were saying, okay, if the amendment was just saying cannabis is legal, then it's assumed that you can grow it at home. Well, people would argue that that's not the case. I'm
Okay,
all for
fair.
home grow. I think
Yeah,
everybody should be able to grow cannabis for personal use.
Well,
fair.
this ballot amendment doesn't give it. And as a matter of fact, because you cannot grow, according to this still, that means that for the first time in the history of Florida, we will allow, based on this amendment, there will be a precedent. There will be something that says that the government can decide what plant we can and cannot grow. Because while cannabis is federally illegal, I don't believe that that's ever been challenged, the part where you can grow it on your own land or whatever. So we are basically saying that the Florida legislature can now make it a precedent that nobody can grow a crop and they can choose another one and use this as the backdrop for it. Use this as
No, but that's not
well,
the
because
amendment does
that is
not
so
prohibit growing cannabis. It just doesn't explicitly say that you can legally grow cannabis. I think you're confusing. This is
I'm
really, I
gonna
think,
look for it right now. I'll tell
it's
you
really a
exactly.
subject for a lawyer with specific knowledge in the subject area. I mean, I feel like we're getting over our heads here.
Medical
So
marijuana treatment centers and other entities licensed as provided below are allowed to acquire, cultivate, process, manufacture, sell, and distribute marijuana products and marijuana accessories to adults for personal use upon effective date below. A medical marijuana treatment center or other state licensed entity, including its agents, employees, acting in accordance with this section as relates to acquiring, cultivating, processing, manufacturing, selling, and distributing products and marijuana accessories to adults for personal use shall not be subject to criminal and civil liabilities. So the only people that can do it is them, but it goes further. I'm trying to find where it was that the only people that'll be able to use this, the only people that are recreational according to this is those people, medical marijuana treatment centers. So it's not really recreational though, which is what you're saying. It is
But somebody,
recreational
you
for
can't
these
just
guys.
sell weed without a license. Somebody, like, that's what I'm saying. You're conflating like who has a license currently versus who might have one in the future.
I'm conflating it, but here's the thing. You're the one saying that the hemp market is unregulated when those people have licenses. Why not just open the market completely? You want to create a dual system. You want to, first of all, they tried
There
to
already
remove
is a
hemp
dual
stuff.
system. The dual system is here.
It is here. Absolutely. And this won't change anything. So you want to make it so that this side is recreational, but you're going to give them exemption from any type of liability. And at the end of the day, we still can't grow. We can't put it into the ground. And at the end of the day, the MMTCs are the only ones that can grow and sell and do this. You're giving them all the benefit and you're taking it from the people of Florida. The people
So, I
of
mean, let
Florida
me ask you
can't
this.
grow. We can't process. We can't do it.
Let
So
me
how
ask
is
you
this
this.
recreational?
Go
So
ahead.
let me ask you this then: who can sell alcohol and beer in Florida?
Any restaurant, any gas station, any liquor store.
Anyone who's got a license
You
to sell it.
no, you can we have beer companies that the small mom and pop shops
Yeah,
that
they
make
have a
their own
license.
beer.
They have a
And
license to
the
sell
hemp
beer and
companies
wine.
have their own license as well. I'm not sure if you are understanding that you're literally arguing the same point that I'm trying to argue.
I think what he's saying, and I think it
If
proves
if
your
I
point.
if I have a
Go ahead.
potato farm, can I just start distilling potato vodka and selling it?
Who's arguing for that?
The hemp industry, basically.
No, we
You
are
have a hemp farm
regulated.
license, and now you've taken an industrial crop and you're trying to sell cannabinoids. You're trying to sell marijuana and marijuana derivatives. I mean, you've taken something that's supposed to be for industrial uses, for the fiber, to use it
Well,
in textile,
Is it?
fiber, and clothing.
in
And
2018, the term industrial was dropped from the Farm Act, which was originally, like to your point, the Dank Informer, the
there's a reason why that
2014.
0.3% cap is in there, because it was supposed to be a cultivar of cannabis that would classify as hemp, because it would not grow a lot of flower. It would grow bud that was not abundant in intoxicating cannabinoids.
But why
Sorry,
in
CBD.
2018? Can I ask this question? In 2018, they dropped the term industrial and they also added cannabinoids to the list of, oh, like they were like, all of these cannabinoids are good except for Delta 9 THC at a level that exceeds 0.3%.
Because they knew
Why?
what they were doing, because it's probably by design.
That's exactly. I'm just glad we're all at least on the same page on that one. I think somebody knew what they were doing with that language.
People would say it's they accidentally legalized it or
No,
didn't. But the
the
fact of
language
the
is
matter,
clear.
hold on,
Yeah.
the fact of the matter remains is that the hemp industry is limited in the amount of Delta 9 THC they can sell. So they've gotten, a little bit of ingenuity, and they've said, oh shit, we can convert CBD to all these THC isomers that still get you high, but they're not Delta 9 THC, so they're not explicitly banned. So now we can push out Delta 8, Delta 10, THCO, HHC, and get people high in a similar way that Delta 9 gets you high, but it's not really weed, so we're good. So
And
that's really the premise of kind of like where we are today in the hemp industry and intoxicating cannabinoids coming out of it.
But can I ask just really quick, I agree with you because we've both gone into the gas stations and seen the same thing. I've seen what you've posted on Twitter. I actually shared with you last time you were on my show what I saw at a gas station when I went in. I saw
If you
these
got the
like Delta
products
10,
in my drawer, dude, they're right here.
right, right. So I've seen like the Delta 10 pre-rolls and, this and that and a THCO and stuff. And my thought whenever I see that shit is like, wow, that's pretty crazy, but I'm not going to buy that. And like, my question to you is like, do you think people are getting like swindled into buying these products
No,
or
the,
like,
the consumer in the hemp industry is not your traditional stoner. Like I've got friends who smoke weed, who they don't think THCA is cannabis. And these are hardcore stoners that would rip the bong every day, and they will do dabs, and they still don't believe that THCA is real cannabis. Because the hemp industry, the hemp market is not targeting your traditional cannabis consumer who rolls up a joint or rolls up a blunt. They're targeting the people that's why they call it hemp. Have never seen a politician, when they talk about the hemp industry in their state, call it marijuana or cannabis. They always use the terminology hemp, the same way the state legal cannabis industry uses the word cannabis, because everyone's trying to get away from the word marijuana. So the nomenclature is designed in a way to target different consumers. Like
Marijuana
marijuana would be
is
like your
a
legacy
terrible
market.
word to use. It's actually a disparaging word, and it comes from Mexico. It's actually what the
I know
Mexicans
that's
were
why
using,
that's
and the
why the
reason that
industry
they
is trying to
use
get away from it.
the actual word is cannabis. When I see a politician use marijuana, it's usually one who is for prohibition, who's against cannabis,
but
and who doesn't know the language.
I think the reason the Dank Informer was just
I
using
was
that
trying
word.
to segregate
Yeah.
the different channels and the different consumer types that these sub-industries of the cannabis sector are trying to target.
Right. Well, again, so just to
How
reiterate
does
what
this
you just
relate to
said,
Amendment 3? I think we were supposed to be debating Amendment 3, and here we are going down this rabbit hole of what other people are doing because they are in a regulated market that allows them to do that. I mean, if you have an issue with the hemp bill, you're more than welcome to contact your legislatures and ask them to change that,
The
which
hemp bill
I'm
passed
guessing
the
that that's what you've been
legislature.
trying to
The
do.
hemp bill passed the legislature. DeSantis vetoed it because he's trying to raise money from the hemp lobby, as seen in the PAC contributions.
He received for that part in the hemp making it illegal, he received over $500,000 from Trulieve to make it illegal. So I don't know if you have the smoking gun that shows that he's trying to raise money to make
He's
it
already
elsewhere.
raising money. What do you mean? Michael Deering, who's a VC investor in hemp companies, has donated $500,000. You've got, just look at the Freedom Fund pack. You've got other people that have donated like 100,000, 200,000. The Citadel guy just said he's donating 12 million.
And I think it's fair to point out that he's raising money, but one of the things that you've said is that he supports unregulated hemp. And when you read his veto, as we discussed last time, he makes it very clear that he's like, no, we'll add age gating, we'll add this and that. He said something to the effect, if I'm off the top of my head, that he was worried that what they were trying to do with hemp, not that they weren't trying to address, some reasonable issues,
Look,
but that it would destroy small businesses and destroy
It
an
would.
open
In the
he's
state of
economy.
virtue
Florida, it would have
signaling.
destroyed over 10,000 businesses that were already licensed under
Yeah.
the Florida legislature.
He's
Let
virtue
Dank
signaling to the industry that's giving him donations. He's also said he doesn't like the smoke of marijuana, but in 2019, he's the one that pushed through the smokable marijuana as a format for the medical program. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
I'm not here to defend Ron
Yeah, I
DeSantis.
was
I'm
gonna
not
say,
sure
I
what
don't
your
think we'll
point is.
Yeah,
disagree
so
on
I mean,
that.
what he says is bullshit. He's a politician. He'll say,
They
whichever way
all are.
it blows.
Congratulations.
But what I'm trying to say is that you have two industries competing for the same piece of the pie, and one is a regulated state industry, not just in Florida, and the other one is the hemp farm industry, which is really just the farm industry that's growing hemp.
But I guess my question to you, the Dank Informer, is like, why would you stand up for the state-based program when it's overly punitive? It doesn't protect against the things that you're concerned about, the testing
Because
things
I
that.
care about legal, tested, quality product that I can
But
buy, walk out, and not be arrested for. I can't do that from the hemp industry today. If I get high on Delta 9 hemp derived THC and I go take a fucking drug test, it's going to say I had weed in my system. That's not legal marijuana. Hemp is not legal marijuana in any fucking sense at the federal level. It's legal to kind of sell
Wait,
it,
can you
buy
backtrack
it.
there for a minute? If you smoke legal marijuana and you take a drug test, you will also show up as having.
Exactly. But people are saying, oh, well, hemp is legal. It's legal weed. Well, it's not really legal because it's the same plant. It's the same cannabinoid. So
So what is your point that people are saying it and then failing
my
drug
point is that I
tests?
want legal marijuana through Amendment 3 so that people are not arrested for using it.
But
There's
that's not in Amendment 3.
What are you talking about? It legalizes cannabis. Who do you think enforces the laws?
Okay, it legalizes cannabis for possession, but if you take it
small
and
amounts of
you don't,
possession, by the
yes,
way.
and if you
Like an
take it
ounce.
and you go to work and you take a pee test and your work says it's a drug-free zone, you're still in this, like, this doesn't
That's the
fix
same
that
with
problem.
alcohol. You're working, fire you for having alcohol in your blood.
Yeah, but cannabis lasts in your system for 30 days. So if you consume cannabis today and you take a drug test 30 days from now, you may
What
still
I'm saying
have
is
an issue. If you're a
a
pilot and
cop
you
will
fly a
not
plane
stop you
and you
for
at
a
any
parking
point,
ticket. A cop will not stop you for running a stop sign and then smell weed and arrest you for having marijuana in your car if it's legal in the state.
but if you have hemp in your car, you're talking out of both sides of your own mouth. If you have hemp in your car and it's legal hemp that you purchase from a store, the cop can't arrest you either
No,
because
the lines are very blurred there because when that happened in North Carolina, when they legalized hemp, the whole sheriff's association came out and said we can't distinguish what is hemp and what is weed because they're selling THCA flower and that is just weed. So it causes more problems for the enforcement, like the sheriff department and the local police departments, because you can't regulate something. You can't call something hemp and cannabis when it's the exact same thing and then pretend that one is legal and one is not.
I'm not sure what your argument is, but also when right now, if you want to buy from an MMTC, you have to voluntarily give up your Second Amendment rights. So if a small human who probably couldn't defend myself without the use of a weapon, I'm no longer entitled to use it under the cannabis laws, but I am if I use hemp. So what you're saying, I still don't understand your point. But
What
what
I'm
you're saying
saying
is like
is,
you don't like it if it's in this market, but you like it if it's in the
no,
other
no,
one.
no,
But
you're
you
missing
also
my
own
point.
stock in one
Well,
market. So
he admitted though that, and we talked about this last time. He buys different hemp products, some from the MSOs, some from like Cantrip. Sorry though, I don't mean to speak for you, the Dank Informer. Go ahead.
My point is that as a consumer, I want legal cannabis that I can buy and consume and not worry about getting arrested. And that's what 99% of the people
I
want.
would love that
They
as
don't
well.
care where they
Completely
buy
agree.
it from. They don't care who they get it from. If it's
Right.
legal, tested, and compliant, that's what
Right.
99% of the people want. That's what I want.
That's what I want as well. I'm glad we
No, you
agree.
don't. You said you don't want Amendment 3. You said
I don't want
let's
Amendment 3
keep
because
arresting people
Amendment
for
3
using
is
cannabis.
not that. And you haven't been able to show me where it says that. Where does it say that you will not be arrested for having cannabis? Where does it say that you will not be arrested if you have
But
a
it's
plant matter?
legal. Why would you get arrested for something that's legal? The
Well,
only people who enforce the law are like your local sheriff department, the county, the state troopers, the federal government. You think you have federal agents on the streets arresting people for weed? No, you don't. Whether it's legal at the federal level
right,
or
it's the
doesn't fucking
state.
matter.
It is the
The
state.
people that enforce the laws are your local jurisdictions, your police departments. These are the people that write the tickets and put you in jail for cannabis. You don't have the feds running on the streets, catching you smoking a blunt and putting you in jail. Whether
Right.
In
it's
So
legal
in
Miami
the
Beach, for
federally or
first,
example,
not doesn't
in,
really
in
matter
Miami
to me.
Beach, it's decriminalized. So I guess Amendment 3 doesn't apply on Miami Beach. Like we already have in lots of parts of Florida completely decriminalized for small amounts. And none of that is in Amendment 3. If you could point to the language in Amendment 3 that says that you won't be arrested for having a small amount of cannabis, that would be
It
great.
literally says it's legal to have up to an ounce on person or whatever the amount is.
As
yeah,
long as it's in an MMTC container.
and I guess my point is in the first year of legal cannabis in Illinois, arrests continued,
They're still happening
despite
in
the
California.
fact that we had legal cannabis. And when you say 30 grams is, it's a lot. Like, again, why why even set a possession limit? There's no possession limit. It's like we were talking about last time, man. No dosage caps, no possession limits, no purchase limits. Like, that's what's great about hemp.
Yeah, and then what's
It's
happened
fully
with some of
legal.
these hemp companies is they've gotten sued because they're like selling basically weed. So you look at Steezy in Georgia, you look at some of these other lawsuits. The lines are blurred between hemp and cannabis. Like you're selling the same product and you're trying to classify it as something else.
You're not selling the same product. Hemp companies are selling hemp-derived cannabinoids, and MMTCs can sell it all. MMTCs can sell hemp-based cannabinoids and can sell cannabis. What
They
you're
don't
upset
have to
about
sell
is
hemp
that the
because they don't
consumer,
need to grow 10 hemp plants to get the same amount of THC. I mean, hemp is just cannabis, guys. I mean, like
Yeah.
yeah,
whether you grow like a plant that produces, 1% THC or 0.3% or 20%, it's still a cannabis plant. So at the end of the day, THC as a molecule is the intoxicating compound in the plant. And so what you're going to see with Schedule 3 is that they're
Schedule
probably
3,
going to get rid of
Amendment
all this
3.
bullshit and they're going to regulate THC the same way, regardless whether you synthesize it in the lab, whether you got it from a hemp derived plant, whether you got it from a cannabis classified plant, whether some other plant they discovered in the bottom of the ocean makes the fucking THC. It's going to be classified the same way. I mean,
You're
alcohol is
confusing.
not classified differently if it came from potatoes or grain or apples or whatever. Like I don't
No
like
one I can speak
the
to.
time's running out and people think like they can kind of have their cake and eat it too. And at the end of the day, everyone's selling the same intoxicating compounds, which is THC and cannabinoids.
Go ahead,
And
Martha.
those compounds will be what's regulated in a post rescheduling world. I mean, the fact that the cannabis plant itself has been Schedule 1 is kind of ridiculous on its own because it's a plant that produces multiple cannabinoids. And when you look at everything else in the Controlled Substances Act, it's all a specific molecule, right? Like LSD, MDMA, cocaine, psilocybin. Cannabis has like whatever 10 cannabinoids and maybe other rare ones.
Hundreds of cat.
Hundreds
Yeah.
of them.
So at the end of the day, what's going to happen is they will regulate the cannabinoids by cannabinoid. Like that's what's going to happen.
I
And
don't, I still,
that's why the
I
hemp
can,
industry exists today because those synthetic and chemical derived cannabinoids, they're not regulated because they're novel, right? People synthesize them. So that's why they exist today because they haven't been explicitly banned.
may
I
I now?
mean, go ahead, Martha. Yeah.
Thank you. We're supposed to be here debating Amendment 3. And the only thing we haven't debated is Amendment 3. You're saying what you would love. You know what, in a free world where we didn't have all these government politicians, we'd be able to consume cannabis freely and we wouldn't go to jail. But what is an Amendment 3? You haven't brought up a single point as to how Amendment 3 will solve that problem. And you're talking about the federal
Yeah,
government.
Amendment
And this
3
is
legalizes
Amendment
cannabis for
3.
adult
May I
use
finish my
possession.
point, please? Thank you. Amendment 3 only covers Florida. So this is not going to be a federal thing. And you're right. Federal police don't come into the state of Florida, but you know who does? The police. and they still arrest people for cannabis. And there's no part of Amendment 3 that states that police are not going to arrest you if you don't have it in an MMTC container. So if you roll up your joints when you get your bud, you take it out of the container and you roll it up into a pre-roll and you're carrying it just like that, you can still be arrested because it clearly states that it must be within that container and it must be that size. What if you buy more than that? Or if you and a few buddies are all together hanging out and you can still be arrested. The point is, everything that you've just discussed that you would love for it to happen, this doesn't solve that problem. And I've pointed out how you're giving full immunity to the MMTCs. So again, I ask you, what part of this law are you hoping for? What part of this law is worth it for you to give up your rights and allow these companies who've already shown that they are bad actors to give them full immunity from the law so that no matter what they do, you can never sue them? Which part of this law is going to protect you like you've been saying that it will?
The part that I can go to Florida and buy weed legally and not worry about it. Like it's literally spelled out. It's
where? Please point to the law.
It
I
literally
mean, I think that is a good.
an
That is the
individual's
one.
possession of marijuana for personal use should not exceed 3 ounces or 5 grams of extract. You know, personal use means possession. So purchase or use of marijuana products or marijuana accessories by adults 21 years of age or older. So it's, I mean, I don't know what you're saying. Like you're saying this amendment doesn't legalize cannabis for adult use and you still be arrested for buying cannabis and walking out of a dispensary. I mean, that's complete nonsense.
You
I think
can. It still happens in California to this day.
It doesn't completely legalize cannabis.
It does not.
Is that the point, Martha, that you're making?
Yeah, it's not going to completely legalize cannabis. It's
Because
not.
to the Dank Informer's point, he's saying, you know, he can go in and purchase a limited amount. But again, that's kind of where I'm coming from, where it's like, that's why I love about hemp is, to me, one of my first experiences with legal cannabis was I was like, I want that, I want that, I want that. And they're like, whoa, 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 you can only have this much. And I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? I thought this was legal.
But
And
that's
the
for
hemp,
possession on person. You can go in 20 times and buy this stuff and put it in your house. Like
but
that's,
they have also come up. I mean, you're right. You could do that probably like if you lived in Florida
who's
or
buying more than an ounce for fuck's sake for
me,
a
bro.
day? You smoke an ounce a
Me.
day?
Yeah. No, not in a day.
Not in a day,
Like,
but I
why do
buy
I
in
have to go
bulk,
every
just like
single day to buy a cannabis? Why can't I buy, like, I don't buy my groceries daily. Why would I have to buy my cannabis daily?
I mean, you don't. An ounce is not going to
But
last
it
you a
would be
day or a
illegal
week.
if I have more than that. I mean,
An ounce
so
is
it's
not
not legal
5
to buy
grams of
it.
concentrate is not going to last you like a whole month.
I don't buy concentrates. I'm sorry, I don't
Okay,
fill my
an
phones with
ounce of
that.
marijuana is not going to
I
last you.
see the point you're trying to make.
Like you guys are getting stuck on these nitty-gritty details that don't really make sense to the average consumer. Like 99.99% of
No,
people
but that's
do
the
the shit.
problem there is that it affects the average consumer. Like I was just saying,
Wow.
the arrests that continue in Illinois are primarily in areas without dispensaries. And those are the people that have always consumed cannabis. They've always been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. And they continue to be affected by these things you're calling nitty-gritty details. And it's like, well, yeah, because that's important. Like, what do you mean it's legal, but it's not that legal? You know, it's like just a weird point that I feel like state programs have failed to address. Do you get what I'm
Well, I
saying,
mean,
Dank Informer?
the federal government has failed, so the state programs have had to do what's right by their
No,
people.
but
That's what you
the
have.
federal government just legalized hemp, and as I was just saying, no purchase limits, no dosage caps, no possession limits.
But what you've seen come from the hemp industry in particular, which you know, most people that consume cannabis consume flower, like yourself, right? You consume flower
Yes. Yep.
primarily, right?
Yep.
Even Martha said she doesn't buy concentrate. Most people
I
that buy
don't buy
flower,
liquid concentrate.
No,
You
but
said
hold
this.
on. Go ahead. You're saying
most
most
people
people
that
buy
buy
flower.
flower were not able to get flower from the hemp industry for up until 18 months ago because THCA really proliferated when Joe Biden said, "Hey, I've directed HHS to reschedule cannabis." And the hemp industry said, "Fuck, like our days are numbered." Look at the Google trends search results. THCA exploded in interest right after Joe Biden said he's instructed HHS to reschedule cannabis. So up
THCA was
until that
already
point,
very
up
popular
until
in
that
smoke
point, you could
shops.
not buy THCA. THCA was not a thing.
Yes,
That's
it
just
was.
that's the hemp industry pushing the boundaries of what they can legally sell according to themselves through the hemp channel.
I mean,
Cookies Dispensary sells THCA. This is a known
Yes, and they
product.
got a
It's been
lot of
known for
shit
a
for
long
it.
time.
They
They've
got
been
a lot
selling
of
it
shit
longer
for
than
it.
18 months.
and they
But
got a lot of shit for it. And the DEA came out and said THCA does not qualify as hemp. They've literally came out and said it's cannabis. So it's not legal. Like you having a bunch of THCA from a hemp industry, which look, don't get me wrong, I've ordered this stuff online from Tennessee and North Carolina hemp farms. Uh, it's real weed. It is what it is, but it's not really gonna save my ass if a cop comes in here and takes it and tests it.
So what I'm hearing is that you just want a protection from the cops, which is what we all want. So get a medical license and then you can have
I can't. I don't live in a state that has a medical program.
Listen, I'm with you. I want legal weed everywhere. But my question continues to be, how is putting bad laws on the books going to solve that problem of having bad laws on the books when you still are not going to be 100% legal?
I mean,
There's still
that's a
going to be
bad law
issues
from
that
your
they can arrest you
perspective. You know,
for.
you have almost 1 million people in Florida who signed that petition. So that ballot initiative. So, you know, 1 million people, that's almost what, 5% of the Florida population or quarter or
You know,
whatever.
I've collected petitions before. I can tell you the amount of people that read all 4 pages before signing. It's like, do you want recreational weed? Yes, here, sign. They didn't
Exactly.
read these
That's
papers.
what people care about. Like,
They do care about recreational, which is why I have a problem with this amendment, because this amendment is not recreational the way those people think it is. This amendment is going to give a full monopoly on THC cannabis plants to the MMTCs, to only them, and it gives them full immunity. So no matter how much pesticides they put on the product, no matter what they do, they cannot be sued. You cannot sue them when you have a problem. And this is the problem I'm telling you. Just because we all want recreational doesn't mean that we should give them this power. This is what we did with the vaccines with Pfizer, and we're Pfizerizing this issue too. We were like so desperate for a solution to COVID that the US government, on our behalf, gave immunity to all these companies. And when they injected people and there were bad side effects, it's like, oh, well, you can't sue. You can't get any type of recompensation for it. You can't get any help because they have now been granted full immunity. And that's what we're doing here. We are so desperate for recreational that we're willing to give these companies whatever they want as long as we get it. And question, why is it that Trulieve needed to pay $66 million to get this ballot amendment passed instead of, I don't know, improving their products? Why didn't they just put out hemp products? Why didn't they just fix the system? But instead, they went after the hemp market. They spent millions of dollars to go after the hemp market. And then they've gone millions of dollars into protecting their monopoly. And I'm supposed to believe that they are doing this because they're so wonderful and they care about us. And meanwhile, this is going to mean that they can't get sued. That's why they're doing it.
everyone's looking out for their best interests. And I mean, just to give you a counterpoint, I mean, why does, you know, Representative Chuck Edwards from North Carolina come out and say, oh, I think cannabis should remain a Schedule 1, but yet he was the guy who co-sponsored, you know, the North Carolina Farm Act that legalized, you know, intoxicating hemp products.
We've already
So,
discussed that politicians are slimy and you're able to
so
buy them. I
what
don't
I'm
know why
trying
we're
to tell you
discussing
is
politicians.
there's interests from both sides, you know, that are fighting to protect their business. But
Yes, and what I'm saying as
but
part of
there's a
the consumer
difference.
class is that
There's
the
a difference when
consumers
you
are not
have
being protected by either one because nobody protects us. And so what you're saying is you're going to screw over the consumer by giving
consumers
full
not getting screwed
immunity.
over.
Let me finish my point, please. You're going to give full immunity to these companies who've spent millions of dollars to make sure that they get special privileges from those same politicians that you're saying, but the politicians don't care about us. I know. And these people have paid all this money so that they can get full immunity from it. And you're going to trust them because you want cannabis to be legal, which is what I want too. I'm just not willing to sell the consumer upstream.
So you're not giving these people full immunity, by the way. I think that's a very broad
Please point
statement.
to where it says that there is no full immunity when I've read you the point where it says that they have immunity.
You can sue
and
them
I
in
will just
federal
say that
court.
a cannabis lawyer, Tom Howard, just commented. He said he's got to go, but she's not wrong on that point.
Thank you.
You can sue them in federal court. I mean, it might say that they're not subject to
Oh,
civil.
no, yeah, totally. Let's sue them in federal court where they're going to pull out this thing where it says that they have full immunity from it. And let's see how
That
that
says
goes.
it. That
You know
says
what?
on the
We should
Florida
totally do a
law.
Nancy Pelosi here and pass it and see what
Go.
happens. And if you've got an extra 70 million lying around, maybe we can repeal it later.
Sorry, Dank Informer, go ahead.
So the paragraph says actions and conduct by medical marijuana treatment centers registered with the department or its agents or employees, and in compliance with this section and
And in compliance, let me
department
show.
regulations shall not be subject to criminal or civil liabilities or sanctions under Florida law. Now it says in compliance with this section and department regulations. Department regulations might say your product can't have pesticides in it, and if they do, you can sue them because they're not in regulations with the
May I show my
compliance.
screen really quickly? Because here I have from the
Yep.
Wayback Machine. I have, and remember that the MMTCs are in full compliance with the law. And yet here, this is the screen, this is the Wayback Machine, because the FDACS, the department that regulates cannabis, removed this because there were hundreds of complaints on their website from these MMTCs, people getting poisoned. There are people who testified because what we were talking about previously, that hemp initiative that passed. I was at each and every one of those meetings, and there were people that testified there that said that they had gotten sick from this cannabis and they reported it here. And instead of addressing it, they removed it. So that same regulatory body that simply removed this entire part of the website because, you know, they didn't want to have to deal with this, those are the people that are going to protect you and all consumers from this terrible product that they can put out there with no issues. Again, the problem that we're having is we're speaking past each other. I agree with you that hemp should and cannabis should be completely legal. What I don't agree with you is to give these people that power over us, because they've already had that power over us and they sold us some really bad stuff and they've never issued a recall. There was only one company that was forced to recall contaminated products, and that was Flora Grown, and or I believe that had to recall. No, that wasn't them. Sorry. I have to find who recalled it, but it's been one company and one company alone that's recalled in all of Florida.
At least what I'm seeing is, I mean, like I said, the section says that a medical treatment center that's in compliance with that section and the department's regulations. I mean, the department's regulations would outline things like, you know, you got to test your product for pesticides and things like that. If your product had pesticides and you got sick from it, you absolutely can sue that company.
Again, I'm bringing up history. I'm not bringing up what I think. I'm bringing up all of these products. And I again showed you the thread on Reddit where people were posting batch numbers, and it was a mega thread with all the batch numbers that had mold, had issues. The Florida department, FDACS, that regulates this, had an entire website dedicated to tracking issues, and they removed it. All of these companies have been in compliance and never once have been out of compliance. So you're saying that somebody can sue them, but the department itself that says that they're in compliance says they're in compliance. So no, you can't sue them.
Look, just because someone posted on Reddit and didn't report it to the department, how's the department going to know? So
the department had
you're
an
mixing
entire website where they were collecting it. Last time that we all knew, there were over 600 reports on that website. We have issued FOIAs for them. We have issued them so that they could give us that information, and they don't want to release it because this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. They have already not been in compliance with the law, and the law still protected them.
And I just want to say that, you know, a lot of these operators also operate in Illinois. Our law is very similar. I know maybe in some ways it's apple and oranges. So, you know, if you want to call me out on the comparison, maybe it's fair. But Illinois is similar in many ways that, you know, as far as our test goes, the Chicago Sun-Times found that a lot of the regulated weed on the shelves were passed. They tested them, you know, kind of performed an audit, and most of the products that they purchased failed. And Illinois law, I'm not exactly sure on, maybe Martha or Dank Informer, you can pitch in on here, but all regulation and recalls are not subject to public transparency. In other words, they're confidential under law. You can't even FOIA them. They're protected
I
under
don't know
law.
about specific clause, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here is
Sure.
there's bad batches regardless whether it's cannabis or produce. And like I've bought shit from a Publix or a grocery store that was expired and I saw it after I already checked out. Like I didn't even see the date. There's bad batches from state legal cannabis operators. There's no doubt. Everyone has bad products or bad batches. There is at least some level of legal recourse. Products from the hemp industry have zero recourse from a legal perspective because most of these are like tiny companies. They don't have regulatory requirements to test for mold or for mycotoxins or for fungus. So most of the products, are you going to tell me that the majority of the products in the state legal market are less safe than the products in the hemp industry?
I'm
Because
not
the
going to say
stuff in
that
the
at
hemp
all.
derived cannabis industry are way worse.
Well, what I would say is, as a cannabis consumer, testing is all good and well, but like if you go back to the days of the federal government spraying paraquat on the plants, like what that became was knowing your grower and trusting your source. And so, like, I guess what you're describing, that's kind of why I asked you that question earlier about like consumers being swindled. It's like a lot of cannabis consumers, and like, I mean, think about the way you consume anything else. Like if you try something and it fucking sucks, and you have, I mean, you admitted that's why you hate some of these products, right? You've had some bad experiences, and it's like, all right, well then share that with people and avoid those types of products and welcome
Yes,
above
but
board
all those
regulation of
companies are
them.
lobbying in Florida, dude. I did a whole thread. Five of these fucking companies, at least, are lobbying in Florida against Amendment 3, and they're selling these hemp products that are toxic. And
But
I've
Yeah.
who are
called them
those
out on
companies
it.
that are
And I have threads
lobbying?
with
Because
20,000 views on them.
you're lobbying in favor of Amendment 3,
I'm
and
not
you don't
lobbying
have a,
anything. No one's paying me a dime.
but you're still lobbying. You can lobby regardless of being paid or
Yeah, I'm
not. You're
lobbying for,
lobbying.
for tested, safe cannabis that's legal.
That's not what
And I
Amendment
won't, I
3
won't get
is.
arrested for buying it.
That's not what Amendment 3 is, though. So again, I feel like we've just gone round and
Hold on.
round,
Yeah.
and I
Can
don't.
I just ask this question? You, and maybe you can like tell me if I'm just like misunderstanding you, because this is what I think we're not the drain we're circling. You said you like to buy tested, safe, legal cannabis, and you've also said you've done that. And you've also said the way you did that was to find out trusted sources, just like I was explaining earlier. And you avoid those sketchy ones. So like what is the deal? Like what can you tell
Because
me?
it took me a long time to figure that out after getting burned from buying these shitty products. Now imagine your average consumer is not analytical like me and is going to go do all the due diligence and look at the COAs. Your average consumer is like, oh, we did a gas station, like, and
Your
they
I think your average consumer will DoorDash it, like you posted about the other day, where Curaleaf is DoorDashing it now. You know what I mean?
Your
Like
average
I feel like
consumer can,
all this stuff is
yeah.
it's gonna
Your
work
average
itself out. You're
consumer is
if
right.
going to
it's
use
there
their
and it's
friends.
available for quickly to purchase, they'll buy it.
I mean,
But
really, you think that people walk into a gas station and they're like, "Oh, this must be top quality stuff." No, like honestly, you're arguing a point that you know is bullshit.
But
You're
your
arguing
cannabis
a point.
consumer does not go into these gas stations. That's the point I was trying to make earlier. These are different segmentations of the consumer. So like your average stoner that's smoking bud or is rolling joints, he's not walking into a gas station buying
No, he's
gas
getting it
station.
from his plug,
He's getting it
which
from his
has
buddy or
even
he's
less.
growing it in his basement. Um, you know, these
But wouldn't
products
it be
target
cool to
different
buy
people.
weed from the dispensary? Like if it was actually cool, what if Curaleaf or like GTI, like would you buy it then? I like to ask people this question because I've had this question or conversation before because they say, I don't know how I feel about these sketchy hemp operators. I'm like, all right, well, Cookies is in it. GTI is in it. Curaleaf is in it. If you went into the gas station and saw those, like, wouldn't that be fucking baller? Like, that'd be cool, right?
Yeah, but they do have fake cookie stores. If you saw in New York, there was a cookie store that was fake when the whole, you know,
I mean,
bullshit rollout happened in New York. They had all these, there was a Jungle Boys, that's a Florida operator. There's one in New York that was a fake front for like, products
Yeah.
probably from the hemp industry.
I don't know, just to circle us back to Amendment 3 and we'll close out. Like, I just really think that it seems like if I could be fair to you, the Dank Informer, you're trying to argue let's not let perfect be the enemy of some incremental progress. And Martha, you're saying you're rightfully calling out that this doesn't say what a lot of people purport to it, which is it does not fully legalize cannabis in the state of Florida. The same issues will likely continue, which by that I mean like arrests in areas that always have, and people just won't be able to participate, which also equals arrests. Because if you can't participate, the enforcement mechanism is arrest.
right.
You
It
know?
also forces people into a potentially poor situation with not being able to purchase a weapon.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different
But
things.
that's
And
an
then
issue
on
at the
top of
federal
it, you
level.
also have the issue of no matter how you slice this thing, that it gives immunity to these MMTCs who've already shown to be bad actors. Heck, the husband of Trulieve executive Kim Rivers was sentenced to 3 years for bribing politicians. We're not talking about like super awesome people who, they're so cool and they spent $66 million to pass this because they love us so much and they would love for all of us to not go to jail because they could easily have taken that $66 million to lobby those same politicians to stop putting us in jail. but they won't, because this is about creating a monopoly for them and about giving them immunity. And so when people like you, Dank Informer, are saying that we need to pass this because this is what's going to save us, and then you just completely eliminate from your mind. Think about it from the investor's point of view. You're an investor. You buy investors with your own hard-earned money that you get in a W-9 in your regular job. You go out and you purchase these. Your stock purchase is directly affected by that $66 million that Trulieve spent to make this happen. If it does not go through, not only have they lost $66 million, but they don't have a monopoly. And let's be honest, their product is not great. So if they can't force their product upon all of us because it's the only thing available, they won't be able to compete. This is do or die for Trulieve. And so when you are out here saying that you want to protect the consumer, you're not protecting the consumer. You're protecting Trulieve. And it's fine if you want to do that, but we've been circling the drain. We haven't really discussed Amendment 3. You lied about what Amendment 3 will actually do. And on top of that, you're not here for the consumer, because if you were, you'd be saying everybody should go look at their products and check that the back, which all products have a COA on the back if they are legal in the state of Florida. All of them have a QR code. You can just scan it and it quickly takes you, just like you said that my product does, because I am fully compliant. You scan the back of it, it takes you to the COA, it tells you exactly what's in that product. What you are fighting for is so that your investment continues to be fine. And listen, that's cool, but you need to stop calling out like, oh, this is because other people are lobbying, because you're technically lobbying. That's what you're doing here. You're here promoting something that benefits you, and that is Trulieve and all the other MMTCs and their monopoly.
Dank Informer, I want to give you plenty of space because
Sure,
Martha,
I
you
just want to
said,
respond. So
yeah.
on the section about kind of like civil liability and or criminal liability, it explicitly says that the medical marijuana treatment centers have to be in compliance with the department regulations. So it's not, you don't have like, complete immunity to not being subject to liability. You have to be in compliance with the department's regulations, which would obviously come in with like testing requirements, etc. Now,
That doesn't specify it there, so you're using your opinion, but sure, go ahead.
it literally says it in compliance with the section and department regulations.
And as I proved before, they've been out of compliance. They've sold you moldy weed. They've sold you weed that had pesticides before in Florida. I'm not talking about another state. I'm talking about here in Florida. I'm talking about Trulieve.
Can I just respond though? So
sure.
As far as like, Trulieve spending all this money, I mean, if it wasn't for Trulieve, you wouldn't even be able to vote for adult use cannabis in Florida. So I'm personally thankful to Trulieve because
I'm sorry, we had Amendment 2 prior.
Yeah, and
we've already had amendments on cannabis.
Where did that go?
It passed. It actually passed, and our legislature didn't do the job that they were supposed to do.
As far as like, the hemp industry and when we talk about the safety of cannabis products, I mean, you could not convince me, even if you gave me $1 million, that the products from the hemp derived market are better than the state regulated market. There's just no way.
Nobody's made that argument.
You literally mentioned that.
I said that they were similar.
I did. Sorry, I
said that they were similar. That there's really the difference.
There's zero accountability for these hemp companies to make quality products and have consumer safety on top of mind, because I've seen what they sell. They sell, the next synthetic cannabinoid, the next thing they can put in the vape, THC JD, THCP. There's even like some other nasty shit in like Europe. Like if you look at the Czech Republic, had the same problem with CBD derived products.
How does this tie into Amendment 3? I'm sorry.
I'm trying to, I'll land the plane in a second. The reality is people want safe cannabis products that are reliable and that they won't get arrested for. And Amendment 3 gives them that. That's what 99.9% of consumers want. There is no monopoly because there's 30-something licensees in Florida. The state legislature can issue more licenses. If you have beef with the licenses, go sue the state legislature and compel them to do whatever the law is supposed to say about issuing licenses. The licenses have nothing to do with the ballot amendment. That's a separate issue.
It is not a separate issue because this ballot amendment gives the licensees
No,
the
it allows the
receipt.
existing operators to sell adult use cannabis. That's how every state that's ever legalized, they went from nothing to medical, from medical to adult use. Who's going to sell the cannabis?
Adult use for all of the dispensaries, including they didn't have a fully vertical. You see, now you're comparing things that are completely different. Florida has a vertical market. In every other state, you had people who were selling the dispensaries, and you had the growers, and you had the processors. Now you're comparing things that are completely uncomparable.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, every market is
I
different.
would say that
Some are
because in
similar,
Florida,
but
you have to have a fully vertical. So it's only going to be those companies. And mind you, many of these companies have multiple licenses. They've been buying out the competition. What this is going to lead to is a monopoly on one company, the dominating company, which I've mentioned many times today. They are the ones that have multiple licenses. They're the ones that spent $66 million. All they have to do after this passes is buy out the other licenses. And you're screwed. You have the Monsanto of weed, and you pushed for it. And there's no liability for them, which is why they've spent this kind of money. I mean, listen, you can believe in Santa Claus, and that's fine if you do, but you've gone around Twitter and telling everybody that this is the salvation. This is going to somehow protect you. And I've asked you over the hour and 13 minutes we've been here, please tell me where it says that. It says that it's going to be recreational. Great. I love that,
so
but
you
only
think
for those companies, and only if you buy from them, and only if you allow them to do it. I mean, listen, recreational means that I can buy it from any retailer that I want to. No, that's not what this is saying. It's going to say only from these anointed few, and those anointed few are going to become fewer and far less.
And
That's all.
that's what this debate is about, right? It's not really about hemp, it's about open access to the market. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
And Dank Informer, do you disagree with open access to the market, and is that why you support Amendment 3?
I I guess I support legal cannabis that's safe and tested. I don't really
But
care
do
who
you see
sells it.
that's like why her that's what that's like I think the point maybe that's where we're missing each other
And
is
this notion that like Trulieve or somebody's gonna buy up all the licenses is complete nonsense. I mean, Planet 13 had to divest their MMTC license to buy out VitaCan. Like no one's gonna go buy all the licenses and become a single monopoly in the state. That's just not gonna happen.
Trulieve already has more than one license.
No,
I'm not talking
the
shit.
licenses are unlimited. Once you have a license, you can have as many
well
dispensaries.
yeah, it's unlimited, but there's only like what, 22?
There's 22. You can own the majority of them and control the market. You know, it's almost, again, this is like having a conversation with
And
somebody who
that's why,
believes in
but
Santa Claus.
and yeah,
It's like,
we'll
you know,
close soon here, but I guess what I'm saying is you know this as an investor, Dank Informer, I'm sure. And look, I invest in some of these companies too, but I disagree with how they lobby, right? You know, I'm not saying I have strong investments in them. It's like chump change, honestly, like maybe in the $100 range. Just when I was young, I bought cannabis stock and I've just held it because that's what I was told to do, right? Anyways, though, I mean, Florida is an appealing option. There's a lot of big money behind it because it's like the limited license state of the market because it's unique compared to Illinois because unlike Illinois, while we're limited licensed, as you just pointed out, the Dank Informer, if you have one of those limited licenses, you have unlimited potential as long as you stay within your vertical. And that's what people I think are truly debating. I don't think and like if that's not on your radar, I get that, but I'm asking you, is that on your radar as an investor? Like that's why this state is appealing because it's a limited license market.
Yeah, I mean, from an investment perspective, it's obviously appealing, but this notion that
Right.
it's going to buy all the other licenses, there are limitations. You can't own, if you own more than 5% of one MMTC, you can't own another one. So, no one's going to
where
go
is that
buy
law?
a bunch of licenses.
That's obviously not
You
true
don't,
because again,
why would you
Trulieve,
buy another license when
it
your
doesn't matter
license
why
gives
you
you all the
would.
unlimited
You
options?
just you just claim something as fact. You said if you have 5% interest in one, you can't buy another one. That's false. And I'd love for you to bring up the receipt for that. You know what? You can't because it's not true.
That
So I
was
mean, like
They
that was
have
Trulieve
from
has
the
already
provisions.
daily
purchased.
article. I mean,
Which
I don't
article?
know. Sorry, I don't know about in Florida, but they do have provisions like that in Illinois. I will say
Not
I
in
have some
Florida.
proof that
that.
they're not
If
enforced.
you're a
Yeah.
medical director,
Um,
then you
oh,
have to
hey, he
disclose
sent me a
information.
link. He sent me a link, so
Scroll
I'll
down
just
on ownership restrictions on buying entity. So,
think that was a quick pull up there, Mr. Dank Informer. 1 second, I'll share my screen. You said scroll
oh,
down to what?
it's literally this. Scroll down on ownership. Keep going.
Owner. Hold on, I'm gonna try to do a control F. Damn it.
Ownership restrictions.
ownership restrictions. Okay.
So I mean, this claim that Trulieve or somebody would buy out all these other licensees. Why would you buy other licensees when your license literally provides you with unlimited cultivation and
Is this
dispensary
something that
capacity?
is talking about licenses as they are, or is something that if passed?
It literally says if an individual owns more than
No, no, no.
5%.
I understand what it says. I'm asking if this is because this isn't a law. This is just an article written by Dustin Robinson, who's an attorney here. So it's an opinion. What to consider when buying Florida medical business
So you're
license.
saying that's his opinion on the 5% ownership
It
cap?
says
Did
at
he
the top,
pull
I'm
that
reading
out of
it.
his ass?
You
Oh,
presented
come on.
something, and I'd like to read what I don't know if you just don't analyze the stuff you read, but I do,
Yeah, apparently I don't.
No,
apparently.
I mean, I get what, uh, uh, I get why she's asking the questions she's asking, Dank Informer, and I thank you for bringing this up so that we can dig into it. So yeah, this was written on February 21st, 2024. So this is talking, yeah, it's a opinion article from a legal professional who
Yeah,
seems
so
to know
then,
different parts of the law. And he references the sections, so maybe I can look this up, Um, but yeah, here's the 5% part that um Dank Informer was
Anyway, my
talking
point
about.
is that there's no point for Trulieve to go buy out Curaleaf or whoever else. Like they have unlimited, they can build as many dispensaries as they want. So this notion that you're going to end up with one like Walmart of weed in Florida is just ridiculous.
I mean, that again though, you just said though that's what's appealing about that market, right? Is that it's a limited license market, which arguably creates these like super corporations.
I mean, almost every state has some different variation there's a cap on licenses, you're never going to get
Yeah,
unlimited.
it's yeah, cannabis generation 2.0. Exactly. That's what these companies all like. They like limited license states. But you've got states like Michigan, and I don't understand the argument against open licensing. I get it from an investor's perspective.
I mean, no, you forget
But
investment perspective. Look at New Mexico. I mean, it's a complete disaster.
in what way? What about Michigan?
New Mexico is an unlimited license market with, I think, over 1,000 dispensaries with the what population less than 2 million people,
okay, so
and
here's
everyone's losing their ass.
Go
the thing
ahead.
on that Trulieve, that 5%, the 5%, Trulieve purchased Harvest and dissolved their assets. So they kept and sold the paper license. So whether that 5% is a rule or not, it's not even enforced because Trulieve was able to buy Harvest. So you know what? Maybe that's the law, but again, all this shows is that it's not actually enforced, and the cannabis dispensaries are able to do it. So you know what? We're back at the same point that I was making before. Regardless of what the paper says, they still do it.
Before we close, just for my sanity, can we just because Martha, you said you admitted it. The Dank Informer, this is about limited licensing versus open licensing, right?
Right, absolutely. I hear, but I just because that
But
point
hold on,
that we
I
made,
asked the Dank Informer that question, correct?
Sorry, what's your question again?
This conversation isn't about uh, you're 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 basically saying we need to have a limited license cannabis market in Florida, not an open license cannabis market.
I didn't say
That's
that.
why we go for.
I
Oh,
said
sorry, I don't
that's
mean
the
to. Go
existing
ahead.
market. That's the existing structure of the whatever was passed. As
Why
long
not make it better, I guess is my question then,
you
instead
shouldn't
of
be asking me.
preserving
You should
it.
be asking the state legislature that's
Well, I'm
in
asking you
the
because
hemp
you're
industry.
endorsing it over an option that as you've experienced
So if you
now.
if you look at New Mexico is a perfect example of an uninvestable market where everyone's losing money because there's unlimited licenses and there's over 1,000 dispensaries.
Would you
I
say the
just wanted
same
to,
about Oregon? Sorry, Martha, just real quick.
Yeah,
Would
Oregon
you
is
say
uninvestable from
uninvestable, right? But guess what?
most
Who's
people's
who's not
perspective.
complaining in Oregon?
Yeah,
Cannabis
Grown Rogue.
consumers.
Grown Rogue is not complaining. There's obviously
No,
operators that are
cannabis consumers. They're not complaining because
sure.
they get their product at a cheap price. I get what you're saying, it's uninvestable, but cannabis legalization, in my opinion, and this is coming from an advocate, and I wanted to make this clear, and I'll pass that over to you, Martha. And I've already kind of said this, but like, yes, I do have some investments, but that's not really why I do my show or do anything that I do. I am a cannabis consumer. And again, the reason I'm fascinated with this topic is because I've benefited from more access to the cannabis plant via hemp than any state-based program. And so like you know, you want to talk about maybe it's not investment friendly or whatever. It's like, all right, well, is that what cannabis legalization was about?
All right, I'd
No, no
like to
one's
just
saying that. I'm just bringing that up as a point. But
Fair.
Okay.
look, that
Did
Let me
you?
just go back
Yeah.
to the point that we had made because, you know, apparently, according to what the Dank Informer shared, it said that you cannot purchase another one if you have 5% shares or more. And so my point is, well, I guess we now either have a clear violation of the law that was allowed to happen, or that's not really the law. So in either case, I just wanted to bring it back to that because here is where I got that from. Trulieve buys Harvest, creates world's largest and most profitable cannabis company. So clearly, Kim Rivers owns more than 5%. Clearly, when she purchased Harvest, she owned more than 5% of Harvest as well. And so here we have it, proof that even if that law is there, it just doesn't matter because this is the thing. If you have enough money and enough influence, which clearly Trulieve and Kim Rivers does, then you can do whatever you want regardless of what's in the laws. And what we've done now with Amendment 3 is we're granting this same person who's continuously violated the laws, whose again husband went to jail for violating the laws, who's been able to do all of this and create a monopoly, who spent $66 million. This is who you're giving your
I feel
this
like
is who
there's a
you're
lot of
going to trust
Trulieve
to do
hate
this.
going on here.
I'm sorry?
There's a lot of Trulieve hate going on here. You know, that you're confusing the ownership cap with like the licensing and holding two
Not
licenses.
confusing. Kim Rivers owns more than 5%. Yes?
I have no idea how much she owns.
I'm sure we can find out because it's a publicly
That there's a difference between buying a company.
no, you said that 5%. So I'd like to know, does Kim Rivers own more than 5%? Because
I
then
said
she'd
you
own,
can't own two licenses because there's a cap on the ownership percentage. If
but
you
she bought a second license.
She didn't buy, she acquired a company and then divested the license.
She Anyways, okay, I can't keep doing this. I gotta go.
Okay,
This is
Martha.
I
like this is
mean, just because you're
listen.
getting
No, no,
confused
she
on
bought two
on the
licenses, but she didn't own two
terminology.
licenses, but she divested of one. Like
What do
we're
you
going
hold
around in
on? What do you
circles.
think happened with like Cresco Labs and Columbia Care? Their merger took forever because they couldn't get anyone to buy their New York assets. So they had to close the fucking merger, and the two companies parted ways, and the merger never materialized because you can only have 4 licenses in New York. Nobody would buy the
Mhm.
licenses, so
And who would buy more than one? Isn't that what you said? Who would buy more than one? Why would you? Anyways, we're going
talking
round
about
and round in
dispensaries.
circles.
Okay,
It is
you're
it honestly, I
me
appreciate
too,
the,
but
the discussion. I appreciate you coming on. You didn't show your face, but I appreciate nonetheless you coming on and having this discussion. You know, at least you stood up to do it because I saw all of the people in that little thread saying, "Oh, Martha's not going to do it. Here I am, and here's my face, and my name is attached to it because I'm not scared of this. I am not here for the money. I've been a long-term advocate, and every time you guys insult me and tell me that I'm here because I want to make more money, I've already closed this down. I'm already done. I don't want to be a part of this industry with the amount of stuff going on and the amount of people throwing shade for no good reason. I've been an advocate way longer than I've ever been involved in hemp. And you can go ahead and keep supporting this type of thing. And this is why we have problems. This is why people have been arrested for almost what we've had the arrest going on since at least the early 80s, but really we've had this problem since the early 1900s. For over 100 years we've had prohibition, and people, instead of having the moral ability to stand and say, no, this is wrong, it is wrong to give Trulieve this amount of power, and it's wrong for them to pretend that this is actually recreational and is for their good, we're going to skirt around it. So we've gone around this extensively at this point. You've said your piece. And at the end of the day, you don't want an open market, and I do. I want anybody who wants to grow it themselves and be able to do that in their own home
oh,
and
I
not have
think
to pay
everyone should be
premiums.
able to grow it
We should be
themselves.
able to. But I believe in the free market, and this isn't a free market.
I believe everyone should be able to grow it themselves. I have no problem with that. The problem comes in is when you want to engage in commerce and sell product, then
Yeah,
you're
look at
selling
all
a
the
product that's
ad
consumable.
hominem attacks, and this is literally like them ad hominem. Like, listen, it's all good. We can continue to disagree. I really hope that when you tell people to vote for Amendment 3, you're going to save some money to help bail people out of jail because this isn't going to stop them from doing
How would that states legalizing cannabis reduces arrests? What are you even saying?
Yeah, let's go ahead and legalize it. Let's go ahead and do that. What you're doing is giving power to the MMTCs. We've already been over this.
But you're making outrageous claims that this is not
I'm
gonna
not.
stop
I'm not
arrests.
making an outrageous claims. I showed you. on
Hold
the piece
on.
of paper where it
And
said
and
it.
I also made that claim that it wouldn't stop arrests because you can just look at Illinois for an example. If folks want to go to colememo.com/is it legal, I'm documenting many cases in Illinois because our law is very similar again to the Florida law with the 30-gram possession limit and all that such. When you exceed that, all of the same criminal penalties apply. And that's ridiculous. And people continue to be arrested for more than that. Home cultivation included. You want to talk like that's not happening in Florida. That didn't happen in Illinois, and people get arrested for that. And so these nitty-gritty details that we talk about, like they're important because,
But
this
you're picking the exception and trying to make it the rule. That is
Okay,
not what
I
happens on a
really have to
regular
go.
basis. People
yep.
are not, there's no cops hanging out outside a dispensary waiting for you to walk out with that you when you legally
I
bought
want
cannabis and arrest you. That's not
I want
happening.
to yeah, and I want to thank you, Martha and the Dank Informer for coming on. Martha, if you want to say anything before you go, I know you said you got
Yeah,
to go.
the
And
those
Dank, I'll
who
give you.
tried to go against the hemp industry tried to make it a felony. We are actually going to have people arrested for CBD and other hemp products in Florida had DeSantis not vetoed that product that bill. So
That's
actually,
horrific.
it's the inverse. It is the lobby that is going for the MMTCs that have tried to continue to criminalize, and they are continuing this thing. So I appreciate the time to have this conversation. Cole, thank you so much for doing this. You've been amazing. It's just I feel like we're not getting anywhere, and a lot of non-true things are being said about
Yeah.
this. So, all right,
Well,
thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
yep.
Bye.
And the Dank Informer, I want to give you space. And I'd also like to just have you on for another moment if you don't mind. Because
Yeah,
people
so
are,
just a
yeah.
quick point I want to make. Martha said, that hemp ban bill was gonna ban CBD in Florida, which was a complete lie, and I called her out on it. The bill was not banning CBD, it was banning CBD derived cannabinoids like Delta 8, Delta 10. People always talk about like CBD and they try to hide behind the CBD label when in reality they're selling, synthetic THC cannabinoids like Delta 8, Delta 10, THCO. And you can argue about whether it's synthetic or not, but the reality is these are all chemically derived in the lab. No one's ever gotten high on Delta 8 prior to the Farm Bill in 2018. No one was out there smoking, Delta 8 carts before they started synthesizing that from cannabis, from CBD. And the same is true for, Delta 10 and THCP and all these other cannabinoids. And so I just want people to understand that like when we talk about the hemp industry, the majority of those products are chemically derived from CBD, and the hemp industry does sell legit products which are hard to find, but there are some companies that sell them like naturally occurring cannabinoid products. And recently they're selling flower as THCA. So there's that.
Whoops, I was muted. Cookies have been muted, and cookies have been muted. Cookies have been doing it. Some other companies are doing it. It's very interesting to see go on. And I wanted to read some comments that have come in because some people were saying, Dank, that I was very slighted your way. Or not your way, Martha's way. And I'll give you the opportunity to respond to that if you'd like, but I'd just like to, if I could respond myself since it's directly about me. Um, you know, as I've tried to say throughout this conversation and when we first talked and everything else, I'm actually very much like with regard to synthetic cannabinoids, especially like the old style ones, K2, like I've had really bad experiences on them. Now, do I think they should be completely legal? No, I just think that they should be like subject to, especially those products, as we discussed last time, the synthetic ones especially should be subject to like stringent regulations. Because as I think Cantrip, the guy Adam Terry from Cantrip has discussed, like something about let's like down the line reactions or something when you're doing these synthetic processes. Like so it's like, okay, yeah, we need more testing. And I know that you've agreed to that in the past. We need some like universal testing standard. But that's like, when people I think what they said was again, I'm going to give you the space here, but just since in the case of fairness, they said this is about limited licensing versus open licensing. They were quoting me. No, it's about endorsing the state endorsed legality of intoxicating cannabis products sold via hemp. And it's like, look, I don't, I, I agree with an open market. Amendment 3 isn't that. What we have in Illinois isn't that. And like, I really, if I were to give you any advice, it's not to just take what you can get. It is to work it out and get it a little bit better. And as you've pointed out, man, you're getting better options
What do you
via
mean by
hemp.
an open market, by the way?
What I mean by an open market is that you should be able to apply for a license and get a license, like pay a pretty nominal fee. You should be subject to testing and regulations, absolutely. And I actually, there is one license cap that I agree with, and that is what we have in Illinois, which is like a per entity license cap, which is what you don't have in Florida. So it's this idea that you wouldn't let any one operator get any bigger than the other, right? So in Illinois, and I don't personally have like a preference on the number, but if I could just explain it and I'll pitch it to you, if you have like a response to this idea. But like in Illinois, we have a 10 dispensary cap, a 3 cultivation cap. So it's like everybody can get 10 dispensaries, everybody can get 3 cultivation. And you can get to be a big company like Cresco or GTI, but you can also, start a small business and eventually possibly get to that level too. And I think that that's a cool idea. Where we fail in Illinois, and again, I'll pitch it over to you, is that we have limited licensing. So it's like not everybody can get a license, but if you get a license, you have those license caps. So sorry if I kind of got a little muddy there,
No, no,
but
I
did
get
that make
it.
sense?
But just one point I want to make here is, yes, you have these license caps for state regulated cannabis companies, but to give you the counterpoint here that a lot of people that defend the hemp industry make, they often say, oh, well, these big marijuana wants to kind of shut down the hemp industry and the open market, and they're going to put all these people out of jobs. But the reality is, the hemp market has had free reign. Like they can, do commerce across state lines. You're growing a bunch of weed in Kentucky or Oregon or California, and you're shipping it to the East Coast. And almost no cannabis company that is publicly traded has really made money in the cannabis industry. Like almost none of these publicly traded MSOs are really making money. They've been losing their ass because there's cannabis sold everywhere through the hemp channel, which is unregulated. There's no restrictions on interstate commerce. There's no extra taxes. There's no regulatory burdens. And so to say that, it's really the cannabis license companies that are struggling, and a lot of them are shutting down. Like, people love to talk about MSOS or MSOs, like these big companies, but there's thousands of other state licensed operators that are just, one state operator, two state operator with like 5 dispensaries. No one talks about those guys because they're not publicly traded and because they're not big enough to talk shit about. But those guys are losing their ass because the hemp
Because
industry,
of
no,
their
because the hemp industry
state-based
is selling weed.
programs. It's
No,
because of
because the hemp industry is selling weed and it's
well, I
regulated.
agree with you. I
So as a
actually will
consumer,
give
though,
you.
as a consumer, would you buy an ounce for $80 from the hemp industry, or would you spend $300 from a regulated state cannabis dispensary?
Well, what I do is I go to Michigan and get it for $100 because I don't go to the limited license states in Illinois because they have arbitrarily high prices for a reason.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. The spaghetti like law framework that where every state is different, and you have to have these processing facilities, these cultivation facilities in every state. Inherently, you're going to have much more expensive weed in those states because they don't benefit from economies of scale. Whereas like a hemp farmer can grow like 100 acres of this stuff,
Right.
process it, and ship it.
It just seems like limited licenses are an exercise in futility. You're trying to like push off the idea of natural market forces, and it's been failing every step of the way. And people have been having great success in hemp, yes, for all those reasons that you're talking about. They can take advantage of banking, they can get a lot of things that cannabis operators, like you say, can't do. And that's a point that I'll agree with you on. And that's why I think earlier that analogy that Martha gave of Uber versus a taxi cab, is like brilliant because it's both you're getting in a car or you're getting high, and it is a car and it is cannabis, but
But
one person is subject to
in
a
this
certain
case,
set of rules.
in this case, the hemp industry is Uber, and the medallion holders are all these people with a state license
Correct.
who got awarded one, and now they're fucked because their competitor doesn't have the same impediments.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to go the way of taxis, man. Like it seems like either you double down on these
By
state-based
the way, I just want to make a
programs.
quick point on that medallion. I've actually been taking cabs from the Atlanta airport because they're cheaper and they're faster than waiting for an Uber. Like Uber would give you the
They probably
dynamic
have to be
pricing and
competitive.
it
Yeah.
would be like 20-30% more expensive. And I would have to wait like 10 minutes. So I've been getting cabs recently because it's been way faster.
Well, yeah, they probably have to be competitive, but that's why they were so pissed off back in the day because they did have a monopoly on, and it was kind of like Uber, yeah, because now it's kind of swung the other way where Uber is kind of controlling the market, if you will, and now their prices are jacked up and their employees aren't happy, and you know what I mean, like all these issues that happened with taxis now.
But they got banned from, I got kicked out of some countries in Europe for that reason because they basically uh subsidize their drivers to eliminate the competition, which is the taxi industry, and then they jacked up the prices. Back in the day, you could get an Uber for like 6, 9, $10. Now the same distance is like $40.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, in regards again, like I said, almost nobody in the state regulated cannabis industry is making money. Um, at the end of the day, you have the hemp industry selling pretty much identical products without regulations and overhead and all that compliance burden. Um, and we'll see what happens with Schedule 3 because I think that's what's going to really
I
where the
agree.
line's going to get drawn and whether the DA says THC is what's being regulated or not, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, just to close, I just get where you're coming from an investor and economic perspective. I'm no economist, but I get why a race to the bottom is not like an investor friendly like market. But it's like my reply as a consumer. It's like, that's never what legalization was about. I think it should be available at the corner store. I think people should be able to have peddlers licenses. Should they be subject to testing? Yeah, if they're at a commercial level for sure, but there should also be like cannabis farmers markets, right? And if you're going to sell Delta 8 or THCO or anything synthetic or, where you have to do a conversion, you should be subject to higher standards, and making sure that that is a safe product. And it just feels like that gets lost in the nuance sometimes on Twitter.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. It's a three-legged beast, the hemp industry. I've been using products that are natural cannabinoids from the hemp industry, Delta 9 and CBD and CBN. But they're not, I've had to find companies that are legit, that do it by the book. And coincidentally, they're the ones that are publicly traded because they have a legal counsel that has to hold the management accountable to shareholders. And they have a board of directors. So, the legal quality CBD products I bought have been primarily from like, subsidiaries of publicly traded companies because I know those people have a much higher scrutiny for what they do due to the fact
Right.
that they're publicly traded.
That's why I like this company because they have a hemp license, but they also have an Illinois cannabis license. So it's like, it's like they don't want their brand to be tarnished from like some
Exactly.
stupid.
They have a higher standard they want to set for
Right.
themselves and for their investors and their license, so they don't want to get in trouble and lose their license. But whereas like all these other processors are like, I mean, it's you
And I
don't
just feel
know.
like those people are going to go with not only those regulations you were saying are going to come down the line. That's how it's going to be. Those really sketchy people selling the powdered nugs and shit. If you've seen that, like the
Yeah.
green and purple nugs, and then like I feel like that shit's going to be addressed. I just hate the idea that we would have to double down on some of these, like Florida specifically, just an awful, awful program. I know it's a good investing program, but it's like as far as a consumer goes, just like I mean, I know you're gonna be able to go and get your weed, man, but it's like if that's all you want to be able to do, I
Yeah,
want to be able
I'm
to have.
certainly not gonna open a dispensary in Florida because I don't live there.
Right, right. I know, and see, I don't either, man. That's the other thing about me. I don't have any investment. I don't ever plan to get in the cannabis business. Again, I'm just a consumer. And like, I don't know, man, I've lived in a limited license state for a while now in the medical days and now in the adult use days. And just all the weed fucking sucks. It's over dried. These big commercial companies just don't know what they're doing. And we're like I say, all these experiences that you
Just
had
grow
in the
your own,
traditional
dude.
market. I do.
Grow,
There's a
grow-
tent right behind this
there you
camera.
go. Grow your own. I don't know. People keep saying like, oh, we want home grow. Just grow your own fucking weed in the closet and don't tell anybody. Like, no one's gonna come and get you. Like,
Fair. It just sucks that, I feel like these cannabis companies should be the first in line, and I would fucking be the first in line to support a cannabis company that put on their package, like, and could back it up. That's important. If you buy our cannabis, these dollars go to, making home grow legal. Like, I don't understand why they're not, that's such good PR for them. And the fact that they seem to oppose it is just like, what the fuck?
something though, I mean, like Trulieve, for example, everybody hates on. They actually sell clones in states where home grow is legal. You can go buy a clone and you can go plant it and let it grow.
In like
Um,
Massachusetts, is that?
yeah, they sell clones. And it's like people love to hate on the big companies, like whether it's like Curaleaf, Trulieve, like Verano, or whoever, like just because it
True
gets
Leaf does get some hate, especially for what happened in.
it
I don't
gets
think they're
the.
in Massachusetts anymore, but what happened in Massachusetts,
I mean,
like,
look,
yeah.
like shit happens, accidents happen everywhere. Like that's not,
Oh,
I'm
and I
sure.
hear that, yeah, that's not unique to True Leaf. Like, that's going to be the next thing. Like,
So
people are going
like,
to have like
people love to just
COPD and
find
shit.
find that one bad negative story and then make it sound like everything this company does is horrible. And unfortunately, that's the reality we live in. We're like, people love to exaggerate and get the conversation going, and negativity spreads more on social media. But you know, it's like if it wasn't for Truly, you wouldn't even been able to vote for adult use cannabis because
And
they're the
dude,
ones that sponsored Safe and Smart Florida. They're the ones that put up the money and resources to draft the language to make sure it passes Supreme Court, like the Florida Supreme Court review. That was the biggest obstacle, is this Florida Supreme Court going to strike this ballot initiative down because of the language again? Um,
what's
and they're
crazy
the
is
ones that
this
funded
this
all the signatures to get gathered.
Yeah, this same conversation happened in Illinois, man. Like, people were like, "Hey, this new cannabis regulation and tax act, it's backed by all the big cannabis programs. It'll give us 30 grams or less, but it's going to be a limited market." Sure, there's another proposal out there that would be open market and allow an unlimited amount of growers, but
Yeah,
like,
but
and I know
nobody
that
wants to fund that. Are you going to fund that? No, you're not. So
and yeah, they did not fund that. In fact, so the bill originally had home grow and the licensed cultivators and law enforcement ended up asking that language be removed from the law. So it's like all of these things, but to your point, it's like, to your credit and to your point, what people were saying back then was, "Hey, I want to be able to go to a store and buy weed." And my thing is, it's just like, that's not good enough for me.
I mean, that's
I
not
get
good
it's a
enough for
good
you, but
step.
it's kind of like the people that are like, oh well, Schedule 3 sucks. Like it's not descheduling. It's like deschedule or bust. Well, it's like, dude, like the fact that the federal government of the United States is even acknowledging the fact that cannabis has medical value,
Right,
like that is huge by itself. Yeah,
right,
it's not descheduling, it's not Canada, it's not Germany, but it's something, right? It's better
right.
than nothing. And so people love to like the all or nothing perspective. If that was the whole mentality, then we'd never have state legal cannabis in the first place either. So, incremental progress is what moves you forward like another step. And then, next year you try again and you try again. I mean, look at Georgia. We've got a low THC program similar to what started in Florida. And that's hopefully eventually going to grow. But, it's like you can't have one without the other when you have all these special interests fighting against it. Like you have to start somewhere and kind of build your way up.
Yeah. Yep. Well said. Well, hey man, I just want to thank you for coming on and for staying on the whole time. I know that there are times where it got heated and I appreciate you for staying on the whole time and coming on and I hope you come on again sometime. I think
Yeah,
it'll be
absolutely,
interesting to
man.
talk about rescheduling and all of these things that are coming down the pipe because they're going to happen. And I think maybe soon. What's your speculation on that before we go? Do you think that'll be happening before the election,
I don't know. I mean,
rescheduling?
you would think so, because it's obviously Joe Biden's and the Democratic Party's initiative. And last election's campaign promise, even though it's not the full promise, it's just
Right.
rescheduling. You would imagine they want to get it done before the election for sure, just to get the voter turnout. Um, and it probably will. I mean, before the election, right? It's kind of like, why would you waste that political capital, right? Why wait for the election to pass and then announce it? Um, and it's been going on for a while. If you think about it, the whole directive to reschedule cannabis it started, it was announced on October of 2022. And then HHS basically recommended Schedule 3 in August of last year. So it's been going through the process, right? And like, I don't know if you watched the Dell's report today.
Yeah.
I think Cresco's was the CEO that said, look, this has been going on at the highest levels of these agencies, and they want to make sure it's durable and it gets done the correct way, right? You don't want to rush a process and then expose it to like legal challenges, and then now we're back to square one and cannabis is Schedule 1 again.
Right.
So it's going through the process. The comment period's over, so hopefully the DEA will weigh in soon.
Yeah. And just a shout out to Charlie Bachtel. He came on to episode 39 of my podcast. And the way we ended off the podcast was talking about, well, we said, hey, well, next time we'll reconnect is when we get a rescheduling announcement. So maybe we'll have another podcast with Mr. Charlie Bachtel. Yeah, that was a good episode of the Dales Report. If people want to look it up, I'll try to remember to put a note in the podcast description. By the way, today is August 12th, 2024. If you're not watching this live, if you're watching it at a later date, the Dank Informer just, again, wanted to thank you for coming on, staying the pace and even hanging out with me afterwards to have an extended conversation. Looking forward to the next time we chat. I'm sure we'll be, interacting in the Twitter sphere. Before you go, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to close out with, I don't work in the cannabis industry. I don't get paid to lobby for the cannabis industry. Like I said, I just want safe products for consumers. I've been burned before by very poor products. And yeah, just know what you consume and just, check your sources.
Cool, man. All right. Well, thank you again for joining. You don't have to stick around. I'm about to close out the show with a trailer for my upcoming mini documentary, and we'll close out this live stream. So if you stay, thank you. If not, it's okay.
All right, man. Take care.
Yep, folks. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Cole Memo. Here's a teaser at my upcoming mini documentary. I started consuming a little bit more than 10 years ago, and I never imagined that I would live in a world with legal cannabis, but
the push to legalize marijuana in Illinois gets a huge boost as it's supported by the state's next governor.
After legalization came to be, I started a podcast. I am Cole Preston. And I quickly learned
we still have more ways now to get in trouble, criminal trouble for cannabis than we did before 2020.
I will be releasing a retrospective mini documentary that details how Illinois fell short of achieving meaningful reform in its cannabis policy.
This plan would make marijuana legal, but would not remove all of the consequences. Explain that for us.
Why are they busting in my door after midnight over something that Illinois says is legal?
Right. Things are legalized, but it's not legalized completely.
Screening dates will be announced soon at Cole. And actually, screening dates are now available now at colememo.com/minidoc. You can also watch the mini doc right now. It's available at colememo.com/minidoc. It's on screen right now. colememo.com/minidoc. Thank you again so much for joining me, and I will be closing out the episode with who brought you this episode. Once again, thank you for joining us. I'm excited to announce that this episode of the Cole Memo is brought to you by the folks at River Bluff Collective. In case you didn't know, River Bluff is a licensed social equity cannabis business in the state of Illinois owned by 3 siblings. They invested their life savings to apply for a dispensary license and ultimately won a social equity lottery ball, which allowed them to build up their business with the help of an investment team. They've also leaned into hemp to finance their operation. You can enjoy their amazing hemp-derived products like edibles, tinctures, and beverages, which can be delivered straight to your door, absolutely legally, from riverbluffcollective.com. I've also thrown that link in the episode description for your convenience. Many of you might already know that the River Bluff Punch Pop is one of my absolute favorite cannabis products I have ever tried. With a whopping 50 milligrams of THC per can, it delivers great effects almost instantaneously. But I realize that this dosage is a little bit high for most people. So for those looking for lower dosed beverages, they also offer the Bluff Punch Pops in 10 milligram form factors, and they even have lower dosed beverages that are suitable for all tolerances, right? So right now I got my hands on some of their lemon seltzers. They've also got this strawberry acai lemonade seltzer, and there's just 4 milligrams of THC per can for both of these drinks. Perfect for people that are cannabis curious. So if you're a cannabis veteran, you might consider trying something like 50 milligrams. But if you're new to it or just have a lower tolerance, you might consider trying some of the lower dosed drinks. And if you're thinking of trying these drinks, this is the month to do it. For the entire month of August 2024, you can enjoy a 40% discount on 4 packs of the 10 milligram or 50 milligram River Bluff sodas. No need for a discount code. The savings are automatically applied at checkout. So don't miss out. Explore their website at riverbluffcollective.com to find those amazing deals on these amazing products. Folks, you must be 21 plus to purchase, and please consume responsibly. I want to be very clear. These hemp-derived products are not sold in dispensaries. If you'd like to find a place to purchase them, once again, the best place to go is riverbluffcollective.com. But if you're really looking for it in store, at the bottom of riverbluffcollective.com, you'll find the store locator. And that's where you can find a River Bluff Collective store near you. Off the top of my head, I know there's one in East Dubuque, Illinois. So check that out. Have fun. Enjoy the products responsibly. And all right, thank you so much